The stone you were told is yours got picked in a hotel ballroom in Kansas City in August of 1912. A room full of jewellers needed something to sell that winter. That's a matter of record. The convention was minuted. I wore the wrong stone for 9 years because of that vote. 9 years of reaching past the one my sign was actually given for the one a trade association put on the card. All 12 signs are in here, with the stone the older chain hands you and the one the shop quietly swapped in. Stay to the end. There's a 13th stone in this story, and one novelist got it thrown out of weddings for 200 years in a single chapter. Kansas City, August of 1912. The American Jewelers Trade Association holds its annual convention. Somebody stands up, and the room agrees that the birthstone situation has become ridiculous. They weren't wrong. Every region kept its own list, so a shop in Boston and a shop in Munich would sell you 2 different stones for the same birthday, and customers had started to notice. So they voted. 1 list, 12 months, settled. 12 stones came out of that room, and all but 3 of them were see-through. Now look at what didn't make it. Sardonyx, held August in the old lists, replaced. Bloodstone, held March, replaced. Moonstone, held June, gone. The opaque, banded, cloudy stones lost almost every slot they had to gems you could see through. Nobody wrote down a reason. The pattern of what survived is the whole argument. This next part gives the game away. The trade has edited its own list 4 times since, adding alexandrite in 1952, tanzanite in 2002, spinel as late as 2016. Sardonyx, bloodstone and moonstone all crept quietly back on as second options. A list of eternal correspondences does not get amended by committee every 30 years. There was a real tradition underneath all that, and it's stranger than the version you got handed. It starts in Exodus with Aaron's breastplate. 12 stones set in 4 rows, 1 for each tribe of Israel. No zodiac anywhere in the text, and no birthdays either. Then Josephus, 1st century, writes about that breastplate and makes the leap everything since has been built on, tying 12 stones to 12 months, and both of those to the 12 signs. This part gets left out. Josephus gave 2 different lists. The same man, in the same body of work, couldn't keep his own stones straight. Jerome picked the idea up in the 5th century, and it spread through medieval Europe from there, copied by hand, translated and retranslated. Which stone belonged to which sign came down to who was holding the pen, and to how good their Greek happened to be. Nobody has ever settled it. Now, the part that breaks the whole thing. The 1912 list is a list of months. Your sign is not a month, and it never was. Libra runs from roughly the 23rd of September to the 22nd of October, so a Libra gets handed Sapphire, September's stone, which covers 3 weeks of Virgo and none at all of the back half of her own sign. A Libra born on the 15th of October is being sold a Virgo stone. Every sign does this. Every one straddles 2 months, so a month list simply cannot be a sign list, however confidently it's printed on the card in the shop. So is your birthstone wrong? No. It's answering a different question than the one you asked. Where do the sign stones come from then? From the planets. Each sign has a ruling planet in the old system. Each of those planets carried stones long before anybody thought about birthdays, and that chain is the one I've followed here. Other lists exist, and some of them flatly disagree with mine. I've never gotten a straight answer on why turquoise sits under Jupiter in one manuscript and under Venus in the next, and I have looked. One more thing before we start. Somewhere in these 12 is the stone I wore wrong for 9 years, and it isn't the sign you're about to guess. 12 signs, starting where the zodiac starts. Aries is ruled by Mars. Mars takes bloodstone, dark green jasper flecked through with red. Roman soldiers carried it. Medieval texts claim it stops bleeding, which it doesn't, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Here's where the calendar cuts an Aries in half. Born in March, you'll find bloodstone right there on the modern chart, sitting second behind aquamarine. Born in April, you get diamond. Same sign, same Mars, 2 completely different stones, decided by which side of the 20th you arrived on. Venus rules Taurus, and Venus takes emerald. Agrippa files emerald under Venus, Jupiter and Mercury all at once, because these correspondences were never as tidy as the charts make them look. The month list agrees for once, since May kept emerald through the vote. Sometimes both roads arrive in the same place. Pearl is what the shop hands a Gemini, June's stone. Pearl is moon material, soft, single-natured, made by an animal wrapping itself around a splinter. Nothing in it belongs to Gemini, except the calendar. The planet is Mercury, so the stone is agate. Banded, layered, one thing on the outside and something completely different 3 millimeters in. You can see why somebody made that match. Cancer answers to the moon, obviously, so the stone is moonstone, also obviously. I know how that looks. It's the one match in the system nobody has ever needed to argue about. That blue drift under the surface has a name, adulorescence, which is feldspar doing something that has no business being visible to the naked eye. Now, I want to be fair here, because I keep catching people in this niche who aren't. Moonstone is on the modern June list, sitting third behind Pearl and Alexandrite, so a June Cancer gets sold the correct stone without either party knowing why it's correct. July Cancers get ruby, and ruby belongs to Mars. Handing Mars to the moon's own sign is the loudest mistake on the whole chart, so half of you are being served properly, and half of you the exact opposite. Nobody at the counter can tell you which half you're in. Leo answers to the sun, and the sun's stone is amber, which isn't a stone. Tree resin, from a forest that stopped existing about 44 million years ago. It floats in salt water and it burns. Rub a piece on wool and it will pick up paper, which is where our word electricity comes from. Electron, the Greek name for amber. Peridot holds August, so an August Leo gets peridot. Peridot is fine. Amber is the one that used to be alive. Virgo comes back around to Mercury, and Virgo takes sardonyx, banded red and white chalcedony, agate's more serious cousin. Sardonyx is the stone this whole story keeps circling, and it held August in the older lists. 1912 pushed it off for peridot, and then the trade put it back decades later as August's third option once nobody remembered why it had left. Hold on to sardonyx. It comes back in about 4 minutes, in a place that made me redo my own chart. Libra comes back around to Venus. Venus is generous, so Libra takes jade. 2 civilizations that never met, Chinese and Mesoamerican, both put jade above gold. When a stone gets valued that highly twice over, independently, by people with no contact between them, I stopped treating it as decoration. Scorpio is the one that sent me back to my own notes twice. Everybody gives Scorpio something black. Obsidian, black tourmaline, onyx. Reasonable enough, since Scorpio is the dark water sign and the shops know exactly what sells. Agrippa doesn't say that. In the occult philosophy, the stone belongs to Antares, which is cor Scorpii, the heart of the scorpion, the red star burning in the chest of the constellation itself. The stone under it is amethyst. The purple one everybody files under February and stops thinking about. It's sitting in a 16th century text pinned to Scorpio's own star, and I have never seen it on a modern chart. Now the inconvenient half, because you'd find it anyway. Antares doesn't carry one stone, it carries two, amethyst and sardonyx. The same sardonyx I handed to Virgo 8 minutes ago. Some sources give Antares sardonyx alone, so my chart has a seam in it, right here, at the most interesting point in the video, and I'm leaving it showing. Anybody who tells you these old correspondences resolve cleanly is either selling something or hasn't read the primary text. Topaz holds November, and topaz isn't wrong. Amethyst is simply older. Sagittarius answers to Jupiter. Jupiter takes turquoise. Persian miners called it the stone that goes pale before its owner does. Turquoise really does change color, though the reason is unromantic. It's porous and it drinks skin oil, soap, whatever else has been on your hands. Turquoise held December in 1912, and it holds December now. That's the third time the modern list has come out right. A video telling you every stone in the shop was a lie would be a more satisfying video. It would also be a worse one. Whitby, on the Yorkshire coast, once supplied nearly all the jet in Europe. Jet is fossilized wood, mostly from monkey puzzle trees, pressed under stone for 180-odd million years until it turns into something you can carve. When Albert died, Victoria wore Whitby jet for the next 40 years, and most of a country followed her into black. An entire industry built on one woman's grief. Capricorn answers to Saturn. Jet is Saturn's. The chart gives you garnet instead, which is Mars, in a sign that has never been a Mars sign. Aquarius comes back around to Saturn, and here Saturn gives obsidian, which is the stone I get asked about more than any other, and it isn't a crystal. Lava cooled so fast the atoms never got their chance to line up, so obsidian is technically a glass, frozen partway through a decision it never finished. February hands an Aquarius amethyst, and I've just given amethyst to Scorpio, so somebody is going to be annoyed with me in the comments. Saturn is the planet of edges, and obsidian holds an edge finer than a surgical scalpel. Somebody put that under a microscope and measured it. Pisces comes back around to Jupiter, and Pisces takes lapis lazuli. For about 6,500 years, every piece of lapis in Europe, Egypt, and Asia came out of a single valley in Afghanistan called Sari Sang. One valley. Ground into ultramarine, it cost more than gold by weight, which is why Renaissance painters saved it for the Virgin's robe, and used cheaper blue for everything else on the panel. Aquamarine holds March, and it suits Pisces well enough. Better than well enough, actually. It's a genuinely good match, so that's 4 out of 12 where the shop gets there by accident. Lapis is the older answer, and it has a color no other rock on Earth makes. That's 12. Now the 13th, which is where this gets ugly. Opal. October stone in every list anybody has ever printed, which makes it the only one on the chart with a body count. Before 1829, opal had the best reputation of any gem in Europe. The Romans read it as a symbol of hope, and medieval writers said it held the virtue of every coloured stone at once, since it contains all their colours, which is the sort of logic that sounds silly right until the moment you hold one in the light. Then, Walter Scott published a novel. The book is Anne of Geierstein, and in it a woman called Lady Hermione wears an opal that flares and dims with her moods. Holy water touches it. The fire goes out. By morning, she is a handful of ash on the bed. It was a hit across Britain and the continent, translated within a few years. What the trade says next is that the European opal market fell by roughly half within months, then stayed down about 2 decades. I'll be straight with you about that number. It's a story the industry has repeated for 200 years without a ledger behind it. The same years brought a cholera epidemic through Europe, and falling output at the Červenica mines in what's now Slovakia. Any of the three could be doing the work. What nobody has produced is an opal superstition older than the novel. People have gone looking. So far, the curse appears to start with a chapter. One last name, George Frederick Kunz. Vice President at Tiffany, the man Kunzite is named after, and the man whose earlier list of 1907 sits directly under that Kansas City vote. A year after it, he published the book that gave the whole thing its history, running back through Josephus and Jerome to the breastplate. In that book, having built the scaffolding himself, he turns around and warns about what he'd built. He writes that the spirit of commercialism could alter the law permanently. He writes that there is grave danger the only true incentive to acquire birthstones will be weakened. He was right, obviously. Nobody listened, including the trade that had published his list. Which brings me around to my own stone. I'm a Scorpio. I got given topaz at 19, because November, and I wore it until the setting went thin at the back. 9 years. I felt nothing off it the entire time, and I assumed for all 9 of those years that the failure was mine. The amethyst was in the same drawer for most of it, and I never once thought to ask why the purple one kept turning up in my hand. So what do you do with any of this? 3 things, and none of them costs anything. 1. Look up your sign's ruling planet instead of your birth month. That's what the old chain runs on, and it takes about 30 seconds. 2. If you already own the month stone, keep it. Put it beside the sign stone and leave the pair somewhere you'll walk past for a week. Then notice which one you keep picking up. Call that energy, or call it plain psychology. The advice I'd give comes out the same either way. 3. If you were born inside 2 days of a cusp, you have 2 signs worth of stones and no way to choose without your actual birth time. So go and find your birth time. Most people have never once seen theirs written down. So, your sign and the stone you actually reach for. 1 line in the comments. The next one goes down into a single stone all the way. Black tourmaline, and why people keep waking at 3 in the morning with it under the pillow. The moon sees you. Stay moonlit.